Everyone said I was insane for taking this job. Maybe they were right, but when you're a med school dropout drowning in debt, with no other prospects in sight, a high-paying night shift at a private morgue starts to sound like salvation, especially when you've got nothing else left. My name is Nate, 22 years old, and I just became the newest part-time attendant at Hawthorne and Daughters, a privately owned mortuary dating back to the 1800s. It's tucked away on the outskirts of Blackwood, a remote village in northern Maine. The building is a lonely relic of another century, built from crumbling granite and wrapped in ivy. It sits at the end of a forested lane, hemmed in by ancient pine trees and a moss-covered stone wall that hasn't seen repairs in decades. "Are you absolutely sure you want this job?" asked Dr. Malcolm Hurst, my old pathology professor, as he handed me the letter of referral. "That place has a nasty reputation. I need the money," I told him, "and I'm not afraid of dead bodies." He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite place. "You should be," he said quietly. I assumed he was joking. On my first day, I met Mr. Hawthorne, the owner. He was a lean man with sharp cheekbones, a perfectly groomed white beard, and eyes that gave away nothing. His age could have been anywhere between 60 and 100. Hawthorne wasn't the chatty type. He gave me a quick tour. The cold storage room, the embalming suite, the dressing room, the office, and the visitation hall. "Your duties are straightforward," he said. "You'll work the night shift from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., monitor the refrigeration units, log incoming bodies, and prep new arrivals for Marla, our morning tech." "Do that many people die overnight?" I asked. "Most people die at night," Hawthorne replied, not looking at me. "Especially between 3 and 4 a.m., the devil's hour." A chill crawled down my spine, but I tried to appear unfazed. "There's one more thing," he said, handing me a framed sheet of paper. "These rules are non-negotiable. No exceptions." I scanned the list. 1. Never turn off the lights in the cold room. 2. Do not speak to the spirits of the deceased. 3. Do not open unit number 9 on Thursdays. 4. Always wear gloves when handling remains. 5. Never work alone after 3 a.m. 6. Always double lock the main entrance when leaving. 7. If someone knocks after 10 p.m., do not open the door. 8. If the landline rings at exactly midnight, answer before the third ring. 9. If your name is called 3 times in a row, do not turn around. 10. If you see a stranger in the hallway, ask who they're looking for. 11. Never touch a deceased person's belongings without gloves. 12. Always keep salt in your pocket. I looked at him, confused. Is this some kind of hazing thing for new hires? "There's nothing funny about this, Mr. Cross," Hawthorne said flatly. "These rules are written in blood and grief. Break them and you pay." I assumed he was just trying to scare me, maybe a creepy initiation ritual or something. But as he demonstrated the embalming tools and the digital monitoring system, I couldn't help but wonder, why was a small-town morgue offering such a ridiculously high wage to a dropout like me? "Harris will be at the gate if you need anything," Hawthorne added. "But don't call him unless it's absolutely necessary." Just before he left me to begin my first shift, he turned at the door and said one last thing. "No matter what you hear or think you see, remember, the dead don't always rest in peace." And with that, he vanished into the night, leaving me alone with the humming refrigeration units and a growing sense that something wasn't right about this place. But it was too late to back out. I needed the money, and I thought, foolishly, that this was just going to be a weird but manageable job. I had no idea that night 1 would only be the beginning. The first half of my shift passed quietly. I spent most of it in the office, flipping through intake reports. 4 bodies were currently in cold storage. 1. An elderly man who died of a stroke. 2. A middle-aged woman lost to cancer. 3. A young man who took his own life. 4. An unidentified corpse labeled pending. That last one felt off. At around 11 p.m., I decided to check the refrigeration units as Hawthorne had shown me. The cold room was silent except for the steady drone of the cooling system. Fluorescent lights above flickered, bathing the stainless steel units in a sterile glow. I took out the temperature log and made my way from unit to unit. Everything was normal until I got to unit number 9. There was nothing visually unusual about it. But rule number 3 flashed in my head. Do not open unit number 9 on Thursdays. It was Tuesday. Still, something about it made me uneasy. I quickly noted the temperature and moved on. Back in the office, I noticed a missed call on the landline. No number, no voicemail, just a single missed ring. I shrugged it off and fired up my laptop, deciding to watch a movie to pass the time. At midnight exactly, the phone rang. My stomach flipped. Rule number 8. If the landline rings at exactly midnight, answer before the third ring. 1, 2. I grabbed the receiver. Hawthorne and Daughters. This is Nate speaking. Silence. Then a breath barely audible. Hello, I said again. It has arrived. The voice was faint, almost genderless. I'm sorry, what has? I asked. Who is this? It's in the room with you. The line went dead. I slowly set the receiver down, heart pounding. A prank? A mistake? Probably just Harris or Marla messing with the new guy. I tried returning to my movie, but my eyes kept darting toward the hallway door. The smallest sounds seemed amplified. The hiss of pipes, the clicking of the cooling system, the wind brushing past the windows. Around 2 a.m., I got up to use the restroom. It was down the hall, past the embalming suite and adjacent to the cold room. As I walked by the refrigeration room, I heard it, soft scratching. I froze. Probably just the machinery, I told myself. But I still opened the door to take a look. Inside, the air was frigid, my breath visible as fog. The units sat silently along the walls. I listened. Nothing. I turned to leave when... Nate! The whisper was barely more than air. I froze. Something had said my name. It came from unit number 6, the young man who had taken his own life. Nate, help me. I took a step back, my chest tightening. Rule number 2. Do not speak to the spirits of the deceased. This is just your imagination. Nate, I know you hear me. Please, open the door. It was clearer now, young, male, pleading. I backed away toward the door. Nate. Rule number 9 slammed into my brain. If your name is called 3 times in a row, do not turn around. But I already had. I turned and bolted, slamming the cold room door behind me. I stood in the hallway, breath heavy, sweat dripping despite the cold. Then I saw it, movement from the dressing room. A large figure stepped out. I jumped. Whoa there, the man said. You okay? He was tall, broad-shouldered, around 50. He wore a security uniform. Harris? I asked, remembering the name. He nodded. Heard a noise. Came to check. What happened? I thought I heard someone talking from inside one of the units. I confessed. Harris didn't laugh. Did you answer? He asked, serious. No. Rule number 2. He nodded. Good. Follow me. We're checking the place. It's after 3 a.m. now. Rule number 5. We moved through the facility. Harris didn't say much, only offered quiet directions and kept scanning our surroundings. Back in the office, I noticed a small white pouch he kept in his pocket. What's that? I asked. Salt, he said, eyeing me. Rule number 12. Always keep salt in your pocket. Why salt? He looked at me. You'll know when you need it. The rest of the night passed quietly, but I couldn't stop thinking about the whisper behind unit number 6. When Marla arrived at 6 a.m. to start her shift, I was almost relieved enough to cry. How was your first night? she asked. She was in her mid-20s, red hair, a warm smile that didn't match the gloomy setting. Fine, elite. Just tired. You'll get used to it, she said, then leaned in and added softly, "And hey, if you hear something, don't answer." As I left, I wondered what I'd gotten myself into, but I needed the money, and besides, it was probably just my imagination. Still, on the way home, I stopped at a grocery store. I bought the biggest bag of salt I could find. After that first shift, I crashed into a nightmare-laced sleep. Whispers, cold metal drawers, a voice calling my name over and over. When I woke up late in the afternoon, I couldn't shake the unease that clung to me. Something had followed me from that building, if not physically, then in memory. I needed answers. So, I did what any rational person in a horror movie shouldn't do. I Googled Hawthorne and Daughters history. The basics came up quickly. Founded in 1879 by a man named Luther Hawthorne, supposedly an embalmer with military experience from the Civil War. Passed down through generations, now owned by Harold Hawthorne, no doubt the same stone-faced man who hired me. But what really caught my eye were the forum threads. Local legends, Reddit posts, a sub dedicated to haunted sites in Maine. The morgue on Pine Hollow Road came up again and again. Claims of strange sounds, visitors who never came back out, unexplained deaths of night staff over the decades. Total nonsense, I muttered aloud, and yet, I kept remembering the voice that had called to me. I hadn't imagined that. Couldn't have. That night, I showed up to work early, hoping to catch Marla before she clocked out. Luckily, she was still in the office finishing paperwork. "Hey, Nate," she smiled. "Sleep better today?" "Not really," I admitted. "Hey, can I ask you something?" She glanced around, then nodded. "Let's go to the prep room. Hawthorne might still be in the office." We slipped into the embalming suite, a sterile space with stainless steel tables, chemical cabinets, and the faint scent of antiseptic and something deeper, like old wood and forgotten time. "What do you want to know?" she asked, leaning casually against the table. "These rules," I said, "are they really necessary? Or is this just some weird superstition Mr. Hawthorne keeps going?" Marla didn't smile this time. "Have you broken any of them yet?" she asked. "No." But I heard a voice from one of the cold storage units. She exhaled like she'd been holding it in. "It always starts that way." "What does?" She looked me in the eye. "Listen, Nate, those rules aren't for decoration. They're real. Every single one. You're not working in a normal place. Hawthorne's has history." "You mean like ghosts?" She didn't laugh. "I mean like things that shouldn't be. Things that don't follow our rules, so we make rules of our own." She told me about the origin of the rules. Luther Hawthorne wasn't just an embalmer. He was fascinated with the occult. Rumors said he experimented on corpses, trying to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. Some say he succeeded. Others say he just opened a door and never figured out how to close it. "What about Mr. Hawthorne now?" I asked. "Harold. 5th generation," she whispered. "He knows more than he lets on, and he doesn't warn people unless he has to." "Why's the night position always vacant?" I asked suddenly, remembering something from the forum threads. Marla went quiet. "The last guy, Joel, he only lasted 3 weeks. He broke rule number 7. I tried to remember which that was. "Don't open the door after 10 p.m., she said, reading my confusion. He heard a knock. Thought it was me, actually. Let them in. "And?" I asked, though I didn't want the answer. "They found him in unit number 9 the next day. Frozen solid. No idea how he got inside. The locks hadn't been tampered with." I swallowed hard. "You're not trying to scare me?" "I'm trying to keep you alive," she said simply. Then she checked her watch. "I've gotta go. But listen, Nate, if you want to survive this job, follow the rules.
No exceptions.
She left me standing there in a cold room with colder thoughts. The second shift started quietly again. I did my rounds, checked the logbooks, monitored the temperatures. I deliberately avoided looking at unit number 6. Unit number 9 sat empty. I didn't want to think about Joel. At 11:15 p.m., the phone rang. I almost didn't answer. "Hawthorne and Daughters," I said cautiously. A man's voice, low, clinical. "We have a new arrival. Special case. ETA 15 minutes. At this hour?" I asked, confused. "Mr. Hawthorne has been notified. Prepare Unit 9. Before I could ask anything else, the line went dead. I stood frozen, eyes flicking toward the cold room. "Unit 9. I called Harris immediately and explained what I just heard. "I'm on my way," he said. "Don't touch the body. Understand? Don't even unzip the bag. Let me handle it." 15 minutes later, a black hearse pulled into the lot. 2 men in black suits brought in a body bag without saying a word. They handed me a thin envelope and left just as quietly. Harris joined me as I opened the file. Name, Isabel Monroe. Age 28. Cause of death, undetermined. Undetermined? What does that even mean? I asked. "Don't ask," Harris muttered. "The less you know, the better. Help me get her into Unit 9. We placed the bag on the prep table. Harris unzipped it slightly to verify the ID tag, and I got a glimpse of her face. Pale, lips faintly blue, long dark hair cascading like shadow. "She looks weird," I said quietly. "Don't look," Harris snapped, zipping the bag closed. "And never speak of her again." As we slid the drawer shut and locked it, I swore the temperature in the room dropped a few more degrees. "Rule 3, Harris said grimly. "Do not open Unit 9 on Thursdays." I nodded. "Tomorrow's Thursday," he added. "No matter what you hear, don't open it." "Why?" I asked. "She's not just a body," Harris said. "You don't want to know what she is." He ushered me out quickly. "Let's do a perimeter check. Tonight won't be normal." As we walked the hallways, I glanced back at the cold room door. I could have sworn I heard humming, soft, melodic, and unmistakably feminine. Isabel Monroe had arrived, and I had the terrible feeling she wasn't leaving. After Isabel Monroe was sealed into Unit 9, everything at the morgue shifted. The temperature across the entire facility dropped, despite the heating system working at full capacity. The lights flickered unpredictably. Strange knocking sounds echoed through vents and pipes. Something invisible had crawled into the building along with her. Harris stayed with me until about 4 a.m. that night. He didn't talk much. He paced, checked every lock, stood outside the cold room with his eyes glued to the small window but refused to go in. Every 30 minutes, like clockwork. "Do you think something's going to happen?" I finally asked him while we sat in the break room, cold coffee in our hands, silence pressing in like a vice. "I don't think," Harris replied. "I know." He didn't elaborate. By 6 a.m., Marla arrived for her shift, her usual bright demeanor replaced by tension. "I heard about Isabel," she said, eyes wide. "Are you okay? What's the deal with her?" I asked. "Why is everyone so scared?" Marla glanced around before speaking. "Isabel Monroe isn't her real name. That's just the code Hawthorne uses. Every few months we get a Monroe. Always a young woman. Always found under strange circumstances. Always kept in Unit 9. Only Mr. Hawthorne handles them. And afterward, the weird stuff always ramps up." I didn't respond. I was still thinking about the way Isabel's pale face looked under the fluorescent lights, like she wasn't just dead, but waiting. Later that morning, I went home but couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the humming from Unit 9. I got back to the morgue early that evening, hoping to catch Mr. Hawthorne before he disappeared again. For once, he was there, sitting in the front office with a ledger in hand. "Sullivan," he said with a curt nod. I assume you've been informed of our recent arrival. Yes, sir, I replied. The, special case. His gaze flicked up to meet mine. Do you remember Rule 3? Don't open Unit 9 on Thursdays, I recited. Good. He stood, gathering his things. No matter what you hear, no matter what anyone says, do not open that unit tonight. He paused at the door. Harris has a family emergency. He won't be on duty. You'll be alone. Sir, Rule 5 says not to work alone after 3 a.m. I'll be back by then. Hawthorne opened the door, then looked back. Don't do anything foolish. And then he left. The silence that followed was the heaviest thing I'd ever experienced. The first couple of hours went by in painful slowness. I avoided the cold room entirely. Around 11:30 p.m., I was reviewing files in the office when the landline rang. My heart stopped. Rule 8. If it rings at exactly midnight, answer before the third ring. I checked the clock. 11:59, and ticking. As the second hand clicked onto 12 o'clock, the phone rang. 1, 2. I grabbed it. Hawthorne and Daughters, this is Nate. A raspy, older male voice responded. Not Mr. Hawthorne's. Not Harris. She's waking up, the voice said. My blood turned to ice. Who is this? You need to check Unit 9. She needs help. She can't breathe. The line went dead. I hung up, hands trembling. Just a prank, I whispered. Probably someone messing around. Then came the scratching. Soft, delicate, coming from the cold room. I stood slowly and walked to the hallway. Nothing out of place. Then a thump. Louder. I walked toward the cold room, opened the door just a crack, and peered through the small window of Unit 9. Nothing moved. And then a sob. A woman's voice, trembling and terrified. Please, please, someone. I'm still alive. I can't breathe, please. I froze, heart pounding. Sounded too real. No, I muttered. Rule 3. Don't open it. But then she cried again, desperation sharpening every word. I'm cold. So cold. I'm not supposed to be here. Please, help me. Was it a trick? Was it possible she'd been misdiagnosed? Still alive? I didn't know what to believe. Couldn't believe. But my hand reached for the cold room door anyway. I opened it, the freezing air biting at my skin. I stepped inside, my breath a fog. I approached Unit 9, the sobs continuing. I'm sorry, I said out loud. I can't open this. I'm not allowed. Silence. Then a long pause. Then the voice changed. Deeper. Colder. If you won't open it. It whispered directly into my skull. We'll find another way out. A sudden burst of freezing wind blasted out from the sealed cracks of Unit 9. The fluorescent lights above me flickered violently. I turned to run, and stopped cold. There, standing in the doorway, was a woman in a white gown. Long black hair hung like curtains across her face. Her skin was pale blue. Her fingers were curled around the metal frame of the door. She blocked the only way out. I screamed and stumbled backward, slamming into Unit 5. The drawer shifted with a metallic clang. I bolted to the left, but she moved faster than anything I'd ever seen. 1 second she was across the room, the next, she stood inches from me. Who are you? I gasped. Her head tilted slowly. When she looked up, I saw her face for the first time. It wasn't human. Her eyes were endless black voids. Her mouth didn't move when she spoke. You broke the rule. Her voice was like frost on glass. You belong to us now. I remembered Rule 12. Salt. I dove into my coat pocket and yanked out the pouch. With a shaking hand, I threw a fistful of salt at her. She shrieked, high and inhuman. Her body twisted like smoke caught in a wind tunnel. I sprinted past her through the door and slammed it shut behind me. I ran straight to the office, nearly dropping the phone as I called Mr. Hawthorne. He answered on the first ring as if he'd been waiting. What did you do? he demanded. I didn't open the unit, I shouted. But something came out. There was silence. Then, stay where you are. Draw a salt circle around your desk. Don't leave it for any reason. I'm on my way. I obeyed, fumbling with the pouch and pouring a shaky ring of salt around the desk. And I waited. I didn't dare look at the hallway, but I felt it. Something was out there, watching, waiting. At exactly 2:59 a.m., I heard 3 soft knocks on the office door. Knock, knock, knock. Nate, came a sweet melodic voice. I just want to talk. It was her, Isabel Monroe. I won't hurt you, she whispered. Open the door. I said nothing. Nate, you can't hide forever. You broke the rule. Now you pay the price. Her fingernails scraped gently against the wood, then harder, louder, until it sounded like claws on a chalkboard. Open the door. The clock ticked over to 3 a.m. And then, I heard heavy footsteps in the hallway. The door burst open. It was Hawthorne. He stepped inside and began chanting something low and guttural in a language I didn't recognize. From beyond the desk, I heard a final shriek of rage, a loud crash, and silence. When it was over, Hawthorne stood there, soaked with sweat, clutching a pouch twice the size of mine in one hand, and a bottle filled with cloudy liquid in the other. Where is she? I asked, my voice trembling. Back where she belongs, he said simply. But not because of you. His voice dropped. You broke rule 2. I blinked. I said I couldn't open the unit. You responded, he said, bitter. You spoke to the spirit of the dead. I opened my mouth to argue, but no sound came out. That's why the rules exist, he said, exhausted. Not to punish, to protect. He sank down in the chair beside me. We got lucky tonight, Sullivan. Don't expect luck to show up twice. After what happened with Isabel Monroe, I seriously considered quitting. But curiosity, and the brutal reality that I still needed money, kept me coming back. Something else, too. A sense that I was now entangled in something deeper, something I needed to understand. Hawthorne gave me 2 nights off. I spent most of it trying to sleep, failing, and reading everything I could about Monroe's salt rituals and warding practices. When I returned on Sunday night, Unit 9 was empty. Isabel had been taken care of, but that didn't answer anything. I approached Marla during shift change. She gave me a quick once-over, as if checking that I still had all my limbs. You heard? She asked. I lived it, I said. Marla nodded grimly. Then you're part of this now, whether you want to be or not. We sat together in the staff lounge for a while. She made instant coffee while I got to the point. Who knows the most about this place? I asked. Marla didn't hesitate. Vivian Blake. She worked here from the early 80s until she retired 2 years ago. If anyone can tell you what's really going on, it's her. Where can I find her? She lives downtown. I've got the address. I visited Vivian the next afternoon. Her small apartment smelled of lavender and old books. The shelves were lined with thick tomes about folklore, anatomy, and spiritualism. She was well into her 70s, sharp-eyed and curious as ever. So, she said after I explained who I was, you've met a Monroe, and you're still breathing. That's rare. You know what they are? I asked. Vivian poured tea into 2 cracked china cups. They're not what people think. They're not ghosts. Not exactly. They're vessels. For what? For something old. Something that doesn't belong here. She sipped her tea, then set it down with a soft clink. Tell me what you've seen. So I did. Everything from the phone calls to the whispers, the salt, the black eyes. Isabel. Vivian listened silently. When I was done, she nodded slowly. You're not crazy, she said. You're just a little too close to the truth. Then tell me, what's really going on? She leaned forward. First, you need to understand the Hawthorne legacy. Luther Hawthorne didn't just embalm bodies. He knew that some souls couldn't pass over. He built Hawthorne and Daughters on what the old locals called a thin place, a weak spot between this world and what's on the other side. She paused. And he thought he could control it, even use it. But when his daughter died mysteriously in 1895, something changed. She was the first Monroe. That name again. Her real name was Abigail Hawthorne, Vivian said. 22. Died in her sleep. But they said her body never decomposed. Like something was keeping her tethered here. I leaned back, feeling cold despite the tea. Since then, there's been a Monroe every few years. Always a young woman. Always around the same age. Always tied to that spot, Unit 9. Why Unit 9? Because it used to be something else. Before the mortuary, before the Hawthorne estate. That exact space was part of an old burial chamber. Pagan. Ritualistic. Luther built Unit 9 over it and used it as a containment cell. Containment for what? I asked. She just said one word. Feeders. Feeders. Entities that survive on memory, sorrow, trauma. They need vessels to cross over bodies that died under certain conditions. The Monroes are all descendants of that original bloodline. Abigail Hawthorne's line, chosen by whatever waits behind the veil. Why only women? Unknown. Maybe something symbolic. Or maybe the bloodline passed through daughters. Either way, every Monroe is tied to that first death. I remembered what Marla had said. That Isabel wasn't her real name. Then all the Monroes, are they related? Vivian gave me a grim smile. Exactly. My head spun. Why does Mr. Hawthorne keep this going? I asked. Why not burn the place down? Seal it forever? Vivian hesitated. Because it's not just about control. It's about power, longevity. Some believe that by managing the gateway, feeding it slowly, they buy themselves time. Decades. Maybe more. That would explain Harris. The man looked 50, but he'd worked there since the 70s. What about the rules? I asked. Who wrote them? Me, Vivian said softly. Well, I refined them. The original rules were carved into the stone walls under Unit 9. In Latin, in runes. Some were warnings, others instructions. I wrote them down, tested them, updated them. I stared at her. You've dealt with this before? Vivian didn't answer directly. Just follow the rules. All of them, no matter what. Before I left, she gave me a pendant. Silver, shaped like a six-pointed star. For protection, she said. But remember, it only works if you believe it will. I thanked her and walked back out into the fading light of downtown. The truth was out, and it was worse than I imagined. That night, back at the morgue, I clocked in and reviewed the logs. At 10:40 p.m., the phone rang again. Another delivery, the voice said. Monroe, ETA 20 minutes. I nearly dropped the receiver. A second one this quickly? The voice continued. Mr. Hawthorne is aware. Prepare Unit 9. I called Harris immediately. He didn't answer. I called Marla. She wasn't scheduled. I was alone again. 20 minutes later, the hearse arrived. 2 men in black suits. Another bag. No words. No paperwork. But this time they handed me a small silver envelope. Inside was a name. Sarah Monroe, 25. SOD, unknown. I opened the bag just enough to verify the tag. And that's when I saw her. It wasn't the face of someone dead. It was peaceful, almost like she was sleeping. I zipped it closed, heart pounding, and wheeled the body into Unit 9. As I slid her inside, I whispered, I'm sorry, and for just a second, I thought I saw her lips twitch. I barely slept after Sarah Monroe arrived. Even after locking Unit 9, even after double securing the main doors, I couldn't shake the image of her face. Serene, too serene. I'd seen hundreds of cadavers during my time as a med student and working here at the morgue. None of them looked like that. Not peaceful. Not preserved. I returned the next night with my nerves on edge and the silver pendant Vivian had given me tucked under my shirt. Marla was waiting for me in the lounge. She came, didn't she? Marla asked before I even opened my mouth. I nodded. Another Monroe. Sarah. Her face fell. We never get them this close together. Never. What does that mean? I asked. Marla swallowed. It means something's changed. Something's escalating. I told her about my meeting with Vivian, about Abigail Hawthorne, about the gateway, about the bloodline. Marla wasn't surprised. She never told me everything, she admitted. But I knew enough. Then she lowered her voice. I think we need to find what's tying them all together. Why now? Why this bloodline? We spent the rest of that shift going through old intake records. Most were archived, but some had been digitized in the internal database. I pulled files labeled M-Class, Hawthorne's internal code for Monroes. There were 27 over the last century. All women, all between 20 and 30, all listed with vague or unconfirmed causes of death. One in 1978 had a note in red ink, genetic match, prior case 5197. Another, in 1992, potential reemergence, same surname, and then I saw it, Sarah Monroe's file, recently added. Same mitochondrial marker, bloodline confirmed. I stared at the screen. These women weren't just chosen. They were tracked, cataloged. Look at this, Marla said, pointing to the oldest digitized file, Abigail Hawthorne. The note under comments read, Subject 0. Phenomenon began post-mortem. Recorded, return, activity. Gateway remains unstable. Beneath it was a line of handwritten text, clearly scanned from the original. The circle must be renewed with each cycle, or the hunger spreads. I don't know what that means, Marla said quietly, but I did. I thought about what Vivian had told me about feeding the other side, about preserving the balance. Each Monroe was a sacrifice, a controlled offering, and Sarah was the latest. It was Thursday. Rule 3 rang in my mind like a klaxon. Never open Unit 9 on Thursdays. But as midnight neared, something shifted. First, the lights in the hallway outside the cold room went out, one by one in perfect intervals. Then the backup generator kicked in, but only partially. The glow of red emergency lights bathed the walls in blood-like color. At exactly 12 o'clock, the landline rang. 1, 2. I picked up. Nate, came a whispering voice. Not Isabel. Not Sarah. This voice was older, rougher, but still female. I can't hold her much longer, it said. Who is this? I asked. Vivian. My stomach dropped. She's waking up, Vivian said. The second one, Sarah. She's different. She's not like the others. What do I do? You find the tether. You find what she left behind. You end the line. And then silence. I grabbed the emergency keys and rushed to the storage room where all belongings of the deceased were kept. Sarah's effects were stored in locker 42. I opened it. Inside was a sealed bag containing her wallet, phone, and a necklace. Not the pendant shape I expected. It was a small, thin silver chain with a charm shaped like an open door. I stared at it. Then I remembered the phrase from the old files. The circle must be renewed. Was this charm a key? A marker? I raced to the cold room. I didn't open Unit 9, but I stood outside the sealed drawer and pressed the charm against it. Nothing. Then I heard it. A whisper. Right behind me. Let me out, Nate. It was Sarah's voice. I turned, but no one was there. I don't want to be her. I didn't ask for this. I can help you, I whispered. Then find where it began. I skipped sleep the next morning and went straight to the city archive room at the public library. The librarian, a kind woman named Ms. Lyman, helped me locate land records and genealogical charts tied to the Hawthorne family. The more I dug, the worse it got. The original Hawthorne estate, built in the 1800s, had been constructed directly atop a collapsed crypt used by a 17th century death cult known as the Pale Chamber. They believed in spiritual resurrection through perpetual tethering, binding the soul to a physical vessel via bloodline continuity. Abigail Hawthorne had been born with a rare genetic mutation, a mutation found in every Monroe since. Each new Monroe wasn't just chosen. They were engineered. They were bred to be vessels. And Luther Hawthorne had known. He hadn't just buried the gateway, he fed it. And his descendants, including Harold Hawthorne, were still doing it. I left the library shaking. When I returned to the morgue that night, Harold was waiting for me. "In my office," he said. I followed him in silence. He shut the door and locked it. "I know what you've been doing," he said. "You lied to me," I snapped. "All of us, the Monroes. You've been feeding them to whatever that thing is. They chose their role," he said calmly. "Even if they didn't know it, they're part of something bigger. You're sacrificing them." "I'm preserving the world," he corrected. "Every Monroe that's locked in Unit 9 buys us a few more months. A little more time. That's what the rules are for." I stood. "Sarah's alive, or whatever's in her is. She'll sleep," he said. "Eventually, unless you interfere again." "What if I can stop it permanently?" Harold blinked. "You can't. But what if I can?" He stared at me for a long time. Then he reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a revolver. He placed it gently on the table. "Then you better do it tonight. Because if she wakes up..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. At 3:30 a.m., I entered the cold room alone. I brought the silver charm, the revolver, the salt, and the pendant. I drew a circle around Unit 9 with salt. Then I whispered, "Sarah Monroe, I know you're in there. I know you're scared. But I have the key." The drawer clicked. Not opened, just clicked, as if the lock had disengaged. I slid it open. Sarah's eyes were already open. Tears ran down her cheeks. She looked at me, not like something possessed, not like a demon, but like a woman who had been trapped. "I didn't ask for this," she said. "I know." Then she sat up slowly, and the temperature in the room shifted. Warmer, like spring air. "You found the beginning," she whispered. I held out the charm. "What do I do?" She placed her hand over mine and guided the charm to the pendant. "Say my name," she said. 3 times. I took a breath. "Sarah Monroe, Sarah Monroe, Sarah Monroe." There was a pulse, like a ripple through the world. The salt around the unit flared with a white glow. And then silence. Sarah slumped forward. Her body went limp. Caught her. She was light, peaceful, and finally gone. Harold found me sitting in the cold room an hour later. "She's gone?" he asked. I nodded. "You broke the cycle." I nodded again. "She was the last." We didn't say anything else. He walked away, slower than I'd ever seen him. I didn't quit the job. Not right away. But Unit 9 was never used again. Eventually, Hawthorne and Daughters sold the business. New owners came in, sanitized the place, took down the rules, modernized everything. But I kept the pendant and the charm, just in case. Sometimes on cold nights, I still hear the humming, faint, distant, but I don't answer. I just pour a line of salt across my door and whisper 3 names to myself like a prayer. Sarah Monroe, Isabel Monroe, Abigail Hawthorne, the ones who were trapped, the ones who are finally free. If you were me, would you dare to work the night shift, knowing something might be waiting in the dark? Would you follow the morgue's rules or risk breaking one just to see what happens? Comment below and let me KN what you would have done. And don't forget to share this story with your friends. Because who knows, they might have had a night like this too.